Well, I thought you might be interested in seeing this thing that Amazon promoted to me. It's called a M5 Stack Core 2. And inside the box is this part is just a paper cover over a USB cable. But what pops out of this thing is a little thing, which is 5 millimeters on the side, hence the name M5 Stack. And it's got like an SD card slot. It's got USB-C. It's got a couple of, or I guess 10 RGB LEDs across the two sides. It's got, UARTs, SPI. It's meant to interface to anything. Inside there's a ESP32 with, I think, 16 meg of flash and 16 meg of RAM. So I mean, it's got way more RAM than most of your ESP32s. And with the SD card, you could pump it up to anything. And the reason this says AWS on it, and it's a little hard to see there, is that Amazon is selling these for $42 on the hope that you'll buy services and storage on their cloud. And it is a great little IoT platform. That's what they sell it for. But this showed up on my screen right after I bought that switch in the background over there. And the switch has a little one inch diagonal LCD screen on it with touch. And I was very skeptical that, you could do anything useful with a 1 inch touchscreen. And then I thought, wait a minute. I'm wearing a 1 inch touchscreen on my wrist. And it's actually quite useful. And this is a 2 inch touchscreen. So for $42, put it in my cart. I got a couple of them to play around with. And I spent a week building a user interface, a touch user interface, which I'd never built before. And it was a lot of fun. So I thought I'll show you the touch user interface that you can build on $42 worth of hardware. This is all written in C++. So I think if I switch, oops, I didn't put the camera on here. So I need to hit the right button. There we go. Good. You should be seeing the device on the overhead, and there's an on-off switch on the side. When I turn this on, it'll go through a startup sequence. There we go. And it's just loading some images off of it's loading them into RAM. It's a decompressing JPEGs. Sorry, that's jumping around a little. I'll try not to bump the desk. So what the user interface prompts me for here is to tap an empty cell. There's 4 cells, so I'll tap one. And then it sort of blows that up to the screen. These are superheroes, and it's giving me a choice of superheroes. And it's saying I can swipe left or right to see these cards with superheroes on them. So I'll swipe to the right. So there's a superhero. Let's say I don't like that one. I don't like that one. There's a superhero of some kind. And I scraped these images off of a website just to test this thing out. And it's prompting me with help here. I wrote this in so people wouldn't know what gestures to use. Double tap is the way I decided was good for selecting a card. So you tap twice, and now that superhero has been loaded into that cell or card. It's like choosing a card in a card game. And now it's telling me that if I want to set the counters, you can see there's a red and a green counter on there. I have to tap that card. And so his counters are 0 and 8. And again, if you just don't do anything because you don't know what to do, the help comes on and says you tap above or below the counter to make it count up and down. So if I tap above that 1, sorry, my finger was in the way, you can see the count going up there, or down if I tap here. And if I just leave it sit there again for 5 seconds, I wrote this help thing to kick in, and it should tell you what to do. Double tap when you're done. So now you can see the counters change there, and it's again going to tell us, I guess there's no help needed, but you can see the way this goes. You can just pull these cards out here. And I actually had to write this code you're seeing now demonstrated that's doing this swipe left and right. So it knows where in the screen your finger touches, and it redraws the screen left to right. And this is all done without a GPU. It's just straight up C++ code. And I actually measured the frame rate and printed it out. It's about 20 frames a second. And I was, and this is a full 320 by 240 screen. And I was afraid that this was going to be so jerky that it would be like in the, what they call the uncanny valley. But at 20 frames a second, it's not terrible, right? It's not as good as, the 120 frames I get on my iPad and things like that. But it's actually usable as a user interface. So you can, it's a decent little touch UI. And it does have some false positives, I guess. I got a double tap when I meant to have a single tap there. Yeah. Anyway, that's about all. It's, oh wait, I guess I do have a swipe up and a swipe down detector. That didn't work. Oops. Thought there's a swipe up. Is there a swipe down? Yeah. If this was a 2-player game, you could see what the opponent's scores were by swiping down, and it's telling you this is faked. Oh, you have to swipe that. There we go. Try one more up. There. That's supposed to be a control panel, which I didn't bother to fake up yet. But that's, that's 1,000 lines of code on a $42 device that gives you a way to play around with touch user interfaces. Whoa, okay, that's not right. Maybe that's a sign I should stop. Anyway, it was a lot of fun to build a touch user interface. Any questions there?
Yeah. What kind of IDE do they give you? Is that something that through the web-based one or something?
I'm glad you asked about that. So there is a variety of things. They have when you first turn the device on out of the box, it comes up with the Amazon logo and has an API key, and gives you a website to go to. And when you go to that website, you get almost a web IDE, I'd say, where you can drag and drop buttons and sliders and image placeholders and things like that. And you put in, your API key, and then when you say compile, whatever you put into the web UI comes down through the internet, because this thing is, on Wi-Fi, and your device has the code that was compiled by their servers and the web UI. It's really pretty slick. However, you can't come close to doing things like I just demonstrated. You can't really have an image, side scroll or any of the cool user interface stuff I wanted to do with that. And it also supports MicroPython, not CircuitPython, but MicroPython. And I couldn't even really get that working very well. So I said, all right, look, I know how to do C++. So I just turned on Platform IO, figured out how to make Platform IO work, and downloaded a bunch of, I guess, really only one library to run the display. There's a m5stack.com is the name of the website. That there was a previous version of this that had physical buttons, and there's a Core 2 library that handles the speaker, and there's a vibrating motor in here, and the touch screen and all that kind of stuff is in the library. So, there's no motion tracking or anything like that. It tracks your touch, but it doesn't make images move in relation to your touch. So I did it all in 1,000 lines of C++. But if you just want to do like a thermostat or barometric pressure or any sort of IoT thing, you could probably get by. And they give you some actually very nice libraries in that GUI, I'll say, so that you can drag and drop things that are coming in on the UART or the SPI port or things like that. So and the images off the flash card. So if you were a newbie and didn't want to, or just even you know how to do C++. I mean, I started trying to do it all in their Touch UI, I think it's called, but I couldn't reach my goals with their interface.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. That's really neat.
Sure.
And are you gonna? Is this a taste of what's actually going to be coming out? A superhero game?
Well, there is an existing card game, but this is effectively a scorekeeper for the card game. It's a prototype of it's a game my son plays, and he pointed out some fatal flaws in the design, as it wouldn't work because a key part, it turns out, of the game is that your opponent needs to know what your scores are, so he knows when to hit you when you're down and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And this is great for you to look at, right? But it's hard for your opponent to see from across the table. So you essentially have to both have to use it. You couldn't have one guy with it and one guy without. But if you did both have it, then it'd be great.
Is there any way? So you said you got 2 of them, but is there any way through the libraries that are included or ones that are available to easily make them talk to each other, or is that something? Yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Yeah. So the Arduino Wi-Fi stack worked fine.
Do they have to be on the same on the same like network basically, or?
Yeah, well, certainly if you wanted to do it without a server, yes, or behind 2 different networks and firewalls, yeah. It's got no cellular radio, but it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Okay.
And I've played around a bit with, you know what, because I didn't turn the Wi-Fi on in these at all. But I'm impressed at what can be done with even an ESP8266, the over-the-air stuff I was talking about. You know, it's I mean, I'm used to, you know, big iron machines when they can, you know, manage 64,000 connections, no sweat, you know, and have 10 gigabit interfaces all over the place. And this is not that, but it's still quite capable, right? You know, for what it's intended to do. You don't need 64,000 connections and 10 gigabits a second into these little things.
Yeah,
it's fine.
So someday I'll show you the EduCube project that Workshop 88 did about 10 years ago. That
wow.
Well, it's a far cry from that, but yeah.
Yeah, nice little device. Oh, and I don't know if I showed this. The back has Lego bricks on it, so Rachel would love these because you can. That's part of why they call them stack. Right, the battery is in this bottom part, and you can unscrew. There's a metric hex screws there. You can pop the battery off and put in other stuff if you want. So there's like a 2-watt amp and a speaker and a battery in this lower module.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, having done a lot of embedded system work, man, when the ESP8266 came around at 80 megahertz and now the 32 at 160 or 240 megahertz,
yep.
You could do tons with it. So.
Yes. And well, having 16 gig of RAM is, or 16 mega RAM, 16 mega RAM is just luxurious. Because I mean, these are, you know, I don't on a 320 by 240 display, I don't think you could get one image, you know, decompressed from JPEG into a, you know, and of course you don't appreciate this, Scott. There's off-screen buffers, sprites, right?
Nice.
So each of those cards you saw sliding by were in their own off-screen buffer, and I was tracking the finger and you know, putting half of each one on as they.
Software, I assume, right?
Yeah, because there's no GPU.
Yeah.
Right. So the CPU at 240 megahertz could keep 20 frames a second at 320 by 240, which is usable, quite usable, I'd say.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. It's I just discovered it.